I've decided to sell the house. Maya, you have 30 days to move out. My brother Kevin announced at Thanksgiving dinner, clinking his wine glass against the table like a CEO delivering quarterly results to shareholders. I've already talked to a realtor. The market is hot, and I should clear at least $200,000 in profit. My parents applauded, my father reaching over to clap Kevin on the shoulder with a proud, finally taking charge of your assets, son. While I sat frozen at the end of the table, surrounded by family members who had just watched my brother evict me from the home I'd been secretly purchasing with my own money for 6 years. What Kevin didn't know, what no one at that table understood, was that the house had never been his at all, and the envelope in my purse contained proof that would shatter every assumption they'd made about the family dynamics they thought they understood. The arrangement had started during Kevin's divorce. 6 years ago, my brother had been falling apart. His wife had left him for someone else, taking their savings and leaving him with a mortgage he couldn't afford. He'd been drinking heavily, missing work, spiraling toward bankruptcy. I'd stepped in because that's what family does, or what I'd believed family should do. Let me help with the mortgage, I'd offered. Just until you get back on your feet. I can't let you do that. You can pay me back later. Consider it a loan. But as months turned into years, Kevin never got back on his feet. He'd stabilized, stopped drinking, kept his job, but he'd also stopped making any mortgage payments. The loan I'd offered had become a permanent arrangement that neither of us discussed. I'd been paying $2,400 monthly for 6 years. That was $172,800 of my money, keeping a roof over my brother's head while he rebuilt his life. What Kevin didn't know was that I'd done more than just make payments. The deed transfer had happened in year 3. Kevin had needed to refinance. The original mortgage was underwater, and the bank was threatening foreclosure. He'd come to me in a panic, needing a co-signer with better credit. Just sign here, the loan officer had said. Standard refinancing documents. What Kevin had failed to read carefully, what he'd signed without reviewing because he trusted me to handle the boring paperwork, was a deed transfer. The new mortgage wasn't a refinance. It was a new loan in my name, secured by a property now legally owned by me. I'd paid the closing costs. I'd qualified for the loan. I'd signed the deed. The house had been mine for 3 years. Kevin had just been living in it, rent-free, unaware that his sister now held all the cards. Why hadn't I told him? Because I'd wanted to see what he'd do. Whether he'd eventually offer to resume payments. Whether he'd acknowledge the help I'd given him. Whether he'd treat me as an equal rather than a convenient solution to his problems. For 3 years, he'd done none of those things. And now he was announcing his plan to sell my house and pocket my equity. The Thanksgiving announcement had been building all evening. Kevin had arrived late, dressed better than usual, carrying an expensive wine he couldn't afford. He'd been dropping hints about big changes coming and taking control of my financial future. I'd assumed he'd gotten a promotion or found a new job. Instead, he decided to monetize 3 years of my silent charity. The market's perfect right now, he was telling our father. Houses in that neighborhood are selling for $450,000, $500,000. I bought in at $280,000. Even after paying off the mortgage, I'll walk away with a fortune. What about Maya? My mother asked, glancing at me. She's been living there too. She can find an apartment. She's always been good at landing on her feet. Kevin waved dismissively. Besides, it's my house. I've been generous letting her stay this long without charging rent. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I reached into my purse. Open it, I said, sliding the envelope across the table. Kevin took it with the condescending patience of someone humoring a child. What's this, your apartment listings? Just open it. He tore the envelope carelessly, pulling out the stack of documents inside. His eyes scanned the first page, the deed, and his expression flickered with confusion. This has your name on it. Yes. That's a mistake. The house is in my name. It was in your name. Until 3 years ago, when you signed a deed transfer during the refinancing. You didn't read what you were signing, Kevin. You trusted me to handle the paperwork. The table had gone silent. My parents were staring. My sister-in-law, Kevin's new girlfriend who'd been quietly enduring the evening, looked like she wanted to disappear. You transferred my house to yourself? I transferred a house I'd been paying for into my name. 3 years of mortgage payments before that, 3 years after. That's $172,800 of my money, keeping that roof over your head. I pulled out the mortgage receipts, organized by month, each one showing my name, my bank account, my signature. These are the records. Every payment documented. Kevin's face had gone from confused to furious. This is fraud. You forged my signature. I didn't forge anything. You signed the documents in front of a notary. You just didn't read them. That's not fraud. That's carelessness. Dad, she stole my house. I paid for your house. For 6 years. While you spent money on new cars and vacations, and that watch you're wearing. I covered your mortgage while you rebuilt your life and never once offered to repay a cent. My father was the first to recover his voice. Maya, this isn't right. That house belonged to Kevin. You had no authority. I had every authority. I qualified for the loan. I made the payments. The house is legally, properly documented mine. I didn't steal anything. I accepted responsibility that Kevin abandoned. You should have told him. I should have told him I was paying his bills. He knew. He just didn't care enough to ask questions about where the money came from. He assumed I was being a good sister, and I was. But I was also being a smart one. My mother was crying, her default response to family conflict. Kevin was pacing, phone in hand, probably searching for lawyers. His girlfriend had excused herself to the bathroom and hadn't returned. I want you to know something, I continued, my voice steady. For 3 years I've been waiting. Waiting for Kevin to offer to resume payments. Waiting for anyone in this family to acknowledge what I'd sacrificed. Waiting for someone to say thank you instead of treating my help as expected. We didn't know, my mother started. You didn't ask. Kevin told everyone he was handling the mortgage. You believed him. No one wondered how someone who'd been financially destroyed by his divorce was suddenly managing a $2,400 monthly payment. No one questioned anything, because questioning Kevin meant questioning the family golden boy. The golden boy dynamic had defined our childhood. Kevin was older, male, charismatic, everything our traditional parents valued. He'd received more opportunities, more forgiveness, more benefit of the doubt. His failures were attributed to circumstance. His successes were attributed to character. I was the younger daughter, expected to support and accommodate, praised for being helpful and criticized for being ambitious. When I'd earned more than Kevin, my parents had worried about his self-esteem. When I'd offered to help with his mortgage, they'd praised my generosity without ever suggesting Kevin should feel embarrassed. The house situation was just the most expensive example of a lifetime pattern. You planned this, Kevin said, finally grasping the full picture. You've been waiting to humiliate me. I've been waiting for you to deserve the help I gave you. To grow up. To take responsibility. To treat me like a sister instead of a bank account. I gathered the documents back into the envelope. You had 6 years to become someone worth helping. Instead, you announced you were selling my house and keeping my money. What are you going to do? I'm going to continue living in my house. You're welcome to continue living there too. I'm not throwing you out on Thanksgiving. But if you want to stay, you'll sign a lease. You'll pay rent. You'll stop pretending you own something you never paid for. And if I refuse, then you have 30 days to move out. Same time frame you gave me. The dinner dissolved after that. Kevin stormed out, claiming he'd sue, claiming I'd committed fraud, claiming our relationship was destroyed forever. His girlfriend followed, clearly reevaluating her life choices. My parents attempted mediation, their preferred response to conflict, which meant pressuring me to accommodate Kevin's feelings. You've hurt him, my mother said. He's struggling. He's been struggling for 6 years while I've been paying his bills. At some point, struggling becomes a lifestyle choice. He's your brother. And I've been more than fair to him. I've been patient. I've been generous. I've been invisible for 6 years while he took credit for my money. I stood to leave. I'm done being invisible. Kevin can afford rent, or he can afford a new address. That's his choice now. The legal threat never materialized. Kevin consulted lawyers who explained, probably for significant fees, that he had no case. He'd signed the documents. He'd ignored his financial responsibilities. His sister had stepped in legally and documented everything meticulously. The family dynamics, however, took longer to resolve. Kevin moved out 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, into a small apartment, paid for with his own money, probably for the first time in years. He didn't speak to me for 4 months. My parents struggled to accept the new reality. They'd built their family narrative around Kevin as the successful son and me as the supportive daughter. Learning that I'd quietly surpassed him in wealth, responsibility, and foresight required rebuilding assumptions they'd held for decades. You should have told us you were struggling, my mother said once. I wasn't struggling. I was thriving. Kevin was struggling. But you couldn't see that because you didn't want to. Kevin reached out 8 months after Thanksgiving. Not to apologize, he wasn't capable of that yet. But to talk. To understand. Why didn't you just tell me? He asked over coffee. When you took over the mortgage. When you did the deed transfer. Any of it. Would you have listened? I don't know. I do. You wouldn't have. You would have been embarrassed, defensive, angry. You would have insisted on some arrangement that preserved your pride while still relying on my money. The only way to help you was to do it quietly, and the only way to protect myself was to document everything. So you were protecting yourself, not helping me. I was doing both. That's what competent adults do. They help others while also ensuring they're not being exploited. I met his eyes. I love you, Kevin. But I spent too many years being the invisible support system for a family that didn't appreciate me. The house was the final lesson. What lesson? That I matter. That my contributions matter. That I don't have to be silent and helpful while everyone else takes credit for my work. The house is still mine. I rent it now, to a young couple starting their lives, charging fair market rate, building equity for my future. Kevin and I have rebuilt something. Not the relationship we had before, but something more honest. He no longer assumes I'll solve his problems. I no longer hide my contributions to avoid threatening his ego. My parents have adjusted too, slowly. They've started asking about my career, my plans, my life, questions they rarely asked when I was just the helpful daughter. At last year's Thanksgiving, Kevin raised a toast. To Maya, for teaching me that family support goes both ways. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. And after 30 years of invisibility, acknowledgement was enough to start. My brother announced he was selling his house. I handed him an envelope. Inside was the truth. 6 years of payments, 3 years of ownership, and a lifetime of finally being seen. Some lessons are expensive. This one cost $172,800 and one family's delusions. Worth every penny.